Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hearing chants of Bibi breakout as he campaigns at a deli ahead of tomorrow's crucial Israeli elections. Netanyahu faces a fourth election in just 2 years. He's hoping his COVID pandemic response will carry him to victory. He's also been touting Israel's vaccine success. Just over half of the Israeli population has been fully vaccinated. This is another tweet that Prime Minister Netanyahu put out, showing that Israel is open and looks like everyone's having fun. Joining us now to talk more about the political situation in Israel is the founder and the director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. Martin Sherman's with us. Also with us, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and NewsMax analyst Alan Dershowitz is with us as well. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So for Americans who are not, haven't really been schooled on the Israeli political system, it is pretty wild. There are a lot of political parties, and really, Professor, this is a referendum on Benjamin Netanyahu, is it not?
It's a referendum on a lot of issues. Benjamin Netanyahu's response to COVID, the Abraham Accords, his relationship with former President Trump, perhaps slightly weakening with current President Biden. It's also a referendum in some respects on the two-state solution. It's a referendum on the disparity, wealth disparity that is growing in Israel. Israel is becoming a wealthy nation at the top, remaining a relatively poor nation at the bottom. So there are a lot of issues. It's also a referendum on the Israeli political system, which is broken. You can't seem to have an election that sticks. There are so many parties and so difficult to put together a coalition. And so we have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. I was in Israel during the last election, and I've known Bibi since, 1970. And, of course, I called him to congratulate him after it appeared that he won the last election. And then, of course, a lot of maneuvering took place, and he's still the prime minister, still under indictment, and the Abraham Accords are still in effect.
The last time we talked about the election, Professor Dershowitz, we talked about Benny Gantz and the Blue and White Party. And I was reading today, Martin, to prepare for this. Oftentimes in the American press, you have to read down into the fourth or the fifth or the sixth paragraph before you find out who the competing parties and candidates are. And Yair Lapid is in his centrist party. Yesh Atid seemed to be the closest competitor here. But again, when you look at the Israeli political system, a lot of kind of horse trading goes on, different coalitions have to be built. What do you see happening specifically for Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow?
Well, I think it's a bit too early to make the call, but if cooler heads prevail, I think Netanyahu is certainly the most suited candidate to deal with the problems on Israel's agenda today. I think the bigger problem is, if I just may take slight issue with Professor Dershowitz, I don't think it's a referendum on all those things. I think the major issue is Netanyahu, because overall in the Israeli electorate, right of center parties are polling about 80%. The trouble is within the right-wing parties, there is a aversion to Netanyahu, which I find very difficult to understand, because obviously he's got unblemished in his decade-long incumbency. But he certainly has been a transformational prime minister on virtually every field in which prime ministers can be tested. Not only his very robust response to the COVID crisis, but he's had great success in the diplomatic field, in the security field, in the economic field. Under his watch, we've expanded our diplomatic reach into Africa, South America, and in the economic field, Israel has joined the prestigious club of developed nations. In security, he's brought terror down to almost imperceptible levels, certainly much less than there were in his predecessors. And he's been so far, at least with the previous administration, very successful in curtailing the Iranian push for nuclear weapons and brought back American sanctions to Tehran. But of course, the election of Biden has really put the cat among the pigeons now, but I don't think there's anyone with the stature that could really stand up to Biden the way that he did to Obama.
That's an important point to think about here as we look at the context of this. But, considering that Donald Trump is not going to be part, de facto of this election, Professor Dershowitz, the relationship between Netanyahu and President Trump so close, is that going to play any role in the ultimate tally of these votes?
I don't think so. Netanyahu's relationship with Biden is pretty good. I think they respect each other. I was in Israel once when Biden actually came, and I saw the mutual respect and admiration. I've known Biden since 1980. He is strongly supportive of Israel's security, criticizes some aspects of the settlement policies. But I agree that Netanyahu is the guy to be able to stand up to Biden if Biden decides to become squishy on the Iran deal. I remember how Netanyahu went to Congress over the objection of the president. I supported him. I sat in the front row. The cheers you heard from Congress. He did the right thing, Netanyahu. He was defending his own country against a president who was prepared to sell Israel out to the Iranians and stab Israel in the back. I severed my relationship with Obama over that issue because he had promised me personally in the Oval Office that he would never, ever abandon Israel in relation to Iran. And he did it, and Bibi stood up to him, and appropriately so.
We'll have to see who's calling the shots, if it's the Secretary of State or the current, the holdovers from the Obama administration, or if it's the Joe Biden that you talked about. Certainly the evidence that we have thus far in his administration is it's the Obama holdovers calling the shots. So we'll see what comes of it. Great to see you both, Professor Dershowitz, Martin Sherman. Thank you for your time today as well, sir. We look forward to talking to you both again.